Not a whole lot. Hi.
Hi.
No. Nobody.
Really?
Not a soul.
Huh.
Surprised me. People must be on vacation or something. I'm sorry? Is there?
I only got one automatic, or two, I guess two. Well, if they didn't include you, I would have forwarded it to you. You know, I want you to feel as part of the team as soon as you can.
Yep.
All capital letters, you gotta watch out for those. Shouting at me. Why are you shouting at me through your email? Oh, John Traeger's there. Talked to him, Benjamin kind of refusing, so I went.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, knowing.
Sexy guy.
Nice to see you, by the way. I didn't shake your hand. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
So when I answered it, that's what I got. Business Street candidate, which I'd be glad to discuss in detail. Well, that's what that was about. That was a post. Remember, John, my offer to get together and talk? Yeah. Really? Alumni Association, I read the book, yeah.
Call to order a regular meeting for the normal local liquor commission. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here?
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. McBride?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Mrs. Cummings?
Here.
First item is a approval of minutes of the regular meeting of March 20th, 2017, and approval of the special meeting of May 15th, 2017.
Move approval.
Second.
Any corrections or adjustments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston? Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. We have two complaint and citation cases that have been settled. The first is a Normal Catering Incorporated doing business as the Bloomington Normal Marriott, furnishing alcohol to a person under 21 years of age. Guilty plea and settlement agreement was reached, and for a fine of $250, as this was their third offense for this establishment. And that fine has been paid. The second is Distill LLC, doing business as Distill Restaurant and Brew Works. The same issue, serving under 21. Guilty plea and settlement, and a fine in the amount of $250, as this was their third offense within the last 3 years. Questions or comments on those? Yes, sir. Mr. Fritz.
Could you review, I mean, the third offense is just $250. Is that what our practice has been? It just seemed kind of, it's been a while since we've had some of these
Exactly.
citations, so.
In the sense that it's over a 3-year period, that has been.
Okay. So if it's in a more condensed period of time, then we ratchet
bump
it up.
500,
Okay.
1,000. Motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll.
Do you have a question?
Oh,
No, I second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize.
Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen.
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The Liquor Commission meeting is adjourned. Call to order a public hearing on a vacation of a portion of the village court right-of-way. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus,
Here?
Mr. Fritzen.
Here.
Mr. McBride.
Here.
Mrs. Cummings,
Here.
Mr. Lorenz, Mrs. Lorenz.
Here.
sorry. Mr. Preston,
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak concerning a vacation of a portion of the village court right-of-way? Is there anyone here wishing to speak regarding a vacation of a portion of the village court right-of-way? And third and final time, is there anyone wishing to speak concerning a vacation of a portion of the village court right-of-way? Motion for adjournment?
Second.
Please call that roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen,
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Cummings,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. Public hearing is adjourned. Call to order a regular meeting for the normal town council for July 17th, 2017. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus,
Here?
Mr. Fritzen,
Here.
Mr. McBride.
Here.
Mrs. Cummings,
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Here.
Mr. Preston,
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's my understanding we've had no request for public comment tonight. Is that correct? Thank you. Then we will jump right into the omnibus agenda, items that are considered routine in nature and will be handled by one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. I would like to be excused from voting on any bills I may have incurred in my duties as mayor.
I would also like to be excused for anything that I've incurred.
That item I was with.
Yes, that's good. Item I has been withdrawn by the property management and ownership of that property, so that will not be discussed tonight. We haven't had a
Approval.
motion yet. Thank you.
Second.
Items to be considered on the omnibus agenda tonight are approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 5th, 2017, approval of town of normal expenditures for payment as of July 12th, 2017, a motion rejecting bids for Uptown Normal Water Feature Cistern Rehabilitation Project, and authorizing staff to investigate alternate methods for rehabilitation. A resolution to award the bid and approve a contract for well number 20, Division A to Lane Christensen Incorporated of Aurora, Illinois, and Division B to Mid-Illinois Mechanical Incorporated of Bloomington, Illinois. A resolution waiving the formal bid process and authorizing the purchase of furniture from Widmer Interiors of Bloomington, Illinois, through the U.S. Communities Government Purchasing Alliance in the amount of $420,853.49. A resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a software licensing agreement with Image Trend Incorporated for fire EMS products and services, and approving a budget adjustment in the amount of $12,333.33 to pay for that purchase. A resolution approving the executive session meeting minutes of June 19th, 2017, and July 5th, 2017, and considering the public release of those executive session minutes. A resolution authorizing the filing of the town's Community Development Block Grant 2017-2018 Annual Action Plan. An ordinance accepting creek land dedication from McLean County Land Trust number 1547, now known as Trust number 1321547. An ordinance vacating a portion of the village court right-of-way in accordance with the approved J&M PUD Final Development Plan, and an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2016-2017 operating and capital investment budget. Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen,
Aye.
Mr. McBride.
Aye.
Mrs. Cummings,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The omnibus is approved. We have two items of general orders tonight. First is a resolution authorizing plan design and administrative changes to the employee group health insurance program.
Move approval. Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we're gonna, if it's okay, for the purposes of presentation, we've got some guests here that Pam's gonna introduce. We're gonna handle both 7 and 8 in terms of the presentation, and then you can obviously vote on those separately, so.
Okay.
Pam, you wanna kick that off?
I'd like to introduce the folks that are going to help me through this process. Jenny Kier is the Human Resources Supervisor, and Mike Wojak, you may remember, Mike is our broker through the Horton Group, and Mike and his team are huge advocates for us, and we appreciate him coming in and being with us here tonight. So I'm going to take a few minutes of your time to kind of go through this robust report. There was a lot of information there, so what we're going to try to do is summarize it, and hopefully make it a little bit more, palatable to get a handle on all the different changes and all the different wheels that are moving on this one. So Jenny's going to be the PowerPoint engineer here. So we'll see if it's ready to go. But basically, it's a pretty robust report with lots of moving parts, so we want to take a few minutes to explain this. And as Mr. Peterson indicated, we also, in this presentation, will cover wellness. We'll take a moment to answer questions as we go in case you want to focus particularly on health insurance and the group insurance program before we move into the wellness topic. So in terms of the group insurance program, we have a self-funded program, and we have, in terms of our benefits, we have health, dental insurance, life and accidental death and dismemberment policies. Our health insurance is, and all of those programs are self-funded, but the health is for full-time employees and regular part-time, and what we do is we operate under a defined contribution model. So as we move forward through this process, I'll talk a little bit about the plans that we offer. We have 3 plan options for health insurance. All of the costs of those health insurance are based off Plan 1. And so that's the amount that the town contributes towards the health insurance program, and then we base all of our other plans off that cost. So the reason why we're coming to you today is our group insurance program operates on a September 1 fiscal year. So that plan year, because it's right around the corner, we traditionally come to council in August with our proposed changes for our group insurance program. We're a little bit early this year simply because of the complexity of some of the changes we're asking to make, and we want some time to adequately educate our employee group and our retiree group. So we're a little bit earlier than usual. We're going to start the discussion with just the health insurance side of things. As mentioned, we currently offer 3 plan options. The first plan is a traditional PPO plan with $50 annual deductible. That is our most costly plan because $50 deductible is pretty unusual. And as we go through this process, and what you probably picked up in my report, we feel at this point that a $50 annual deductible is a little bit antiquated. However, that is our first plan option. The second one we offer is a traditional PPO with a $500 deductible. And then Plan 3 was implemented a few years back. It's a high deductible health plan with a health savings account option. Plan 1, as we move forward, a lot of our recommendations are based off of what we want to do with Plan 1. Plan 1 is our highest cost plan, and it does have the highest utilization. What we're recommending this year in terms of the health insurance side of the equation here, we're going to target the discussion primarily right now on active employees. We'll get to retirees in a couple minutes. In regard to active employees and the health insurance program overall, we are recommending for our plan year an increase in premiums of 9% this year. We budgeted for an 8% increase, so we are asking for a little bit more than what was budgeted. However, I think we have a few things driving that decision. We're always looking toward long-term stability and sustainability of our health fund. We want to make sure that we're planning for long-range success of that fund. Bless you. The health fund is in sound condition currently, but we believe an increase is in order to keep up with certain unknown things on the horizon. Obviously, legislative changes, we don't know what that future holds. We also continue to experience increasing costs of health care, and then, of course, spiraling costs of prescription drugs, specifically specialty drugs. And, I'll just indicate, Jenny and Mike, you can jump in anytime you want to add comments as well. So we are requesting a premium increase of 9% this year. The second thing we're looking at is to plan for the future elimination of Plan 1. We believe that plan has, basically, it's outdated, and while that plan offers the highest utilization, it's for a reason. It's just a $50 annual deductible. So a lot of employees with single coverage are in that plan. They're paying nothing towards their premiums because the town pays 100% towards single coverage, and under Plan 1, their risk is $50 for deductible. We are requesting that council authorize us to just notify employees that we intend to eliminate that plan, not immediately, but out in the future. So what we are recommending is January 1, 2020, that plan doesn't exist anymore. Our thought process was basically with enough advance notice that gives employees 2 open enrollment periods to select a different plan. And the tied in with that then is the third request, item number 3 here, which is we're asking for authorization to implement an incentive to move from Plan 1 to Plan 3 quickly. Plan 3 is the lowest cost plan to the town. Again, the town pays 100% of the premium for employees with single coverage and 50% of the premium for dependent coverage. So from the town's cost perspective, as well as an employee, looking at premiums only, Plan 3 is the cheapest. And the future of sustainability of the health fund and long-term outlook is to target more towards higher deductible plans. And I think that's the trend. So what we're asking for is a consideration of doing for 2017 open enrollment a significant contribution to employees' health savings account to incent them to move earlier rather than later into that plan. My thought process basically was this is not just an incentive, but it's a reward. For those that take the time to put some thought and analytics into it, to think what's best for them, does this plan make sense? And if they choose Plan 3, if that's the one that makes sense for them, we're rewarding them for that because it is the lower cost option for the town. Everybody's plan choices is different at different times of their life. But if Plan 3 is not the best plan for them, then they still have Plan 2 they can choose from between now and January 1, 2020. What I handed out to you is a table that shows the details of each plan. And the value of this handout, it shows you the proposed premiums with a 9% increase for each plan. Plan 1, as you see, is the most expensive plan in terms of monthly premiums, and it shows the breakout between what the town's share is and what the employee's share is for that coverage. Plan 2 is the $500 deductible, and what we have done since implementing these 3 plans, is because we operate on a defined contribution model, if the town pays $605 for an employee to have single coverage, and that employee chooses Plan 2, then the difference between those premiums go into the flex spending account. So the employee does get the advantage of picking the lower cost plan. Same thing for Plan 3. Plan 3 is the high deductible health plan that has the lowest monthly premiums. Again, for single coverage, the town was willing to pay $605. If you choose Plan 3, the monthly premium is $534. The difference is $71 per month. So that amount goes into that employee's health savings account. Down at the bottom, you'll see what the health savings account contribution has been. the typical savings would be, or the typical contribution into the health savings account is just the difference in premiums. That automatically goes into health savings. What we're proposing for 2017 only is this sizable contribution. So you can see the difference between what we're proposing, what ordinarily would go in there anyway. So that's the value of this table. So once we get past what we want to do with Plan 1 and how we want to get people into Plan 3, the fourth significant change, which actually looks significant on paper, in terms of impact, it's relatively insignificant. In 2012, we implemented a wellness incentive. That's what we call it. In reality, it's more like a penalty, because the $40 and $80 wellness incentive is actually what an employee would pay more toward their health insurance if they do not participate in wellness. So if an employee has single coverage and they choose not to participate in our wellness plan, or wellness program, which means they choose not to do the health risk appraisal and the biometric screenings, then they will pay $40 per month towards their health care. If their spouse, if they have employee plus spouse or family coverage, if their spouse does not participate, then they pay $80 toward that monthly premium. Since that wellness incentive has been in place at $40 or $80 per month since 2012, we've never increased it. We propose that we increase it a little bit in 2017-18 plan year from $40-80 to $60 a month for single, or $120 a month if your spouse is covered, as your contribution. Now, the reason why I say that's relatively insignificant is because we have 99% participation in our screenings. So the 5 or fewer people that this would apply to then would have a choice still to either participate in wellness or pay this amount. If we don't increase the $40 and $80 incentive, I think we run the risk of people eventually becoming complacent and just saying, I'm not going to participate anymore. You know, premiums have gone up. I'll just pay $40, whatever. So we really want to make sure we continue that high level of participation. So those are the 4 major kind of moving parts in the group insurance program this year that affect active employees. And as mentioned, with all these proposed changes for plan renewal, the human resources staff will work closely following council action tonight and to educate employees on where we're at and what's on the horizon in terms of action they need to take, preparation, whatever we need from them to help them feel comfortable with the changes. So then we're going to move on from the active group to the retiree group. The retiree insurance program is something that we're very proud of. We have employees or retirees that we continue to work with daily about retiree insurance questions and such. And so the HR team is always supporting them and answering questions. During the last couple of years, during renewal, when I've come to council, in my council report, it may stick out, but we have kind of put you on notice that we were looking at solutions for our retiree population. We had identified some concerns in regards to their claim versus the revenue and the impact on the health fund. And so we've been working closely with Horton for the last couple of years to evaluate what makes sense, not only for the health fund, but for retirees. So we have a solution. We think we've come up with something that we think makes great sense. Just in terms of some background, how our plan operates. When an employee retires, they have an option to select a group insurance program to stay in, one of the plans. Most retirees pick Plan 1 because of the $50 deductible, but regardless, they are able to stay in our group insurance program. When they become age 65 and enroll in Medicare, our plan is intended to function as secondary to Medicare. That's what what our intention has been. As such, our tradition, our practice has been that when a retiree becomes Medicare eligible, whatever premium they pay to Medicare for Medicare coverage, we deduct that premium from our premium. So they get credit for being in Medicare. What we put up on the slide is an example. Our monthly premium right now for single coverage is $555. Retiree pays 50% of that. The town pays 50% for retiree coverage. So a retiree's premium becomes $277.50. If the retiree's Medicare eligible, and if their Medicare premium is $100, typically it's more than that these days, but for ease of calculation, let's go with $100. They then would get a $100 deduction from our premium, and then they would be invoiced by finance and would remit to the town $177.50 per month for their insurance. That goes into the health fund. So that's for a retiree with single coverage. For a retiree that has spouse coverage, when an employee retires, if their spouse is covered in our plan at the time they retire, then they're allowed to stay in our plan as well. The town, as mentioned, pays 50% of the retiree's premium, but the town also pays 20% of a retiree spouse premium. So we do contribute to a retiree spouse premium. Under this example, a retiree plus spouse coverage has a monthly premium of $13.35. The town's share of that would be 50% of the cost of the single coverage and 20% of the cost of the dependent coverage. So our share each month for that retiree and spouse is $433.50. The retiree pays 50% of his or her share, and then 80% of their spouse. So the retiree then would be paying $901.50 per month. If both of them are over the age of 65 and enrolled in Medicare, and if both of them have an insurance premium of $100 each, we deduct those Medicare premiums from ours, so they get a $200 credit. And then they would remit to us $701.50. We invoice them, they pay us $701.50. So that's what the cost would be under this scenario. So what we've discovered is a couple of things. Because our plan is intended to run secondary, we're giving them that credit in the premiums amount. What we've learned, however, is we're not always secondary to Medicare, and we're not intended, and unfortunately, we didn't intend that. Retirees, when they become Medicare eligible, they typically don't go and additionally buy a Medicare supplement or Medicare Part D to cover their drugs. They're using our plan to do that. So our plan, our group insurance program, is covering the cost of Medicare eligible employees or retirees and spouses' prescription drugs. And there's a couple other more minor things that we've discovered in terms of claims payments, but the biggest concern is the impact of Medicare eligible retirees' prescription drugs and the increasing costs of drugs, especially specialty drugs. We want to make sure that we get a better handle on this moving forward, because that's not sustainable. Our plan can't function as primary and continue to not charge the appropriate premiums as such. So we're asking two things in regard to Medicare eligible retirees. The first is we would like to stop the practice of deducting the Medicare premium from our premium. So basically, a Medicare eligible retiree would have to pay the full premium cost to stay in our plan. Because that could truly be financially burdensome to some retirees, Horton Group has found what we believe to be a good solution, and that is where Benistar comes in. Benistar is a fully insured program for Medicare eligible retirees, Medicare eligible folks. It covers Medicare Parts A, B, and D. It's a national plan, covers 70,000 lives to date. All of their like pharmacies that they work with cover all of our local retailers. They're all included. And their rates, because they work through Medicare to develop their plans, all of their pricing structure is based off Medicare pricing, whereas our group plan is not based off Medicare pricing. So we have evaluated Benistar with the assistance of the Horton Group and believe that to be a really good financially sound option that I think retirees, even those that aren't quite Medicare eligible but know that's on the horizon, will find to be somewhat of a relief in terms of a price. What I've got a pricing slide a little bit later, so we'll kind of show how that plays out in terms of retirees' financial impact. But here's what would happen if council authorizes this change and authorizes us to implement Benistar. We would notify retirees right away, and we would move forward with the Horton Group and the Benistar folks to implement Benistar, help retirees enroll, and then move forward that way. One thing to note is I did notify retirees, all retirees, not just Medicare eligible folks, but all retirees, because eventually they will be Medicare eligible, that we were making this presentation to council. A couple weeks ago, we gave them notice that we're considering this, and we wanted to hear their thoughts. And so we did hear from a handful of folks. Their biggest concern was just change, just the being unsure of the change. The other one was, is my current pharmacy in the network or not? And the answer is yes, all of the local pharmacies are in. And then a couple other more miscellaneous questions regarding travel and such. Another question, though, that we did hear is if I'm under 65 but my spouse is over 65, how does that work? And so our suggestion and our plan would be that once a retiree or spouse hits Medicare, they would move into the Benistar program, and then the one who's not quite Medicare eligible yet remains in our group plan but under the single coverage, and the town would then pay the appropriate rate for that individual, either the retiree share if the retiree is the single person, or the spouse share if the spouse stays in as the single coverage. So that's kind of the plan for Benistar, and then of course the Human Resources team will help with enrollment of the retirees into that program. So the next thing we wanted to share with you is the financial side of things. How would this impact a retiree? Currently, as in the examples I shared with you, if a retiree gets the current Medicare deduction from our premiums, they're currently paying $177.50. Well, that assumes their Medicare premium was $100 a month, but using that example. And then, or $701.50 if both the retiree and spouse are Medicare eligible. When we cease that deduction, when they pay the full amount of the premium, then it would become $277.50 or $901.50 per month. Those are big dollars. The cost of healthcare is quite a bit there. And again, this is because on the health side, we're secondary, on the pharmacy drug side, we're primary. The Benistar plan, you can see the significant impact. It does impact single coverage significantly, $50, $60 a month. Who doesn't want that in their pocket? But the big impact is retiree and spouse. So once retiree and spouse become Medicare eligible, the savings is very significant. And we believe, and I've shared with retirees, that the Benistar program is more robust, that it does have better coverage at a better rate than our plan can offer. So that covers the group health side, the retiree impact, and then the only two other things remaining would be the dental insurance side. The good news with dental is no change. No increase in premiums stay the same. The plan design stays the same. It's good to go at status quo. And then with life and AD&D, I accidentally indicated earlier that it's self-funded. Life is not self-funded. We just pay the premiums through the standard. But what we're proposing is just a nominal change whereby the town pick up the $1.03 per month cost for the $10,000 spouse and $3,000 children life benefit, which comes to, if all employees participated, it'd be a maximum of $4,000 or something like that per year cost to human resources budget. Currently, we do it through payroll deduction. There's some billing complications, and for $1.03 a month, and what right now would equate to less than $2,500, I think. We're just asking if that's something the town can just pick up. So that covers our group insurance side of things. And before I roll into the wellness side of things, I'm going to give Mike and Jenny an opportunity to add wherever I missed or whatever you'd like to add, or certainly we can answer any questions that you might have targeted to the group insurance. Or are you just dazzled?
Questions?
Mike, do you have anything to add? Do you have anything to add, Mike, to Pam's comments?
Thank you. And first of all, Mayor, council members, managers, city clerk, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and contribute some comments to this. Ms. Reese did an excellent job of summarizing what's actually been in the makings over the past several years. As you recall, again, we heard the same words. It's about sustainability and affordability. And healthcare has been challenged quite a bit over the past several years. We all know that. You hear it every day in the news, and it'll continue to be quite loud for a while. You've adopted programs over the past several years that have helped you mitigate some of this rise. Your plan, being self-funded, is 100% credible, meaning that you have enough employees and members on the plan that you're your own insurance company. And the risk of that insurance, or the risk of your plan, is what you're going to pay and what your employees would contribute as well. So you've done a lot of heavy lifting over the past several years in adding 2 other plan designs. On the horizon, the goal is to eliminate one of the most utilized, overutilized, it's really non-existent in today's market, the $50 deductible plan, and staying with something that's more benchmarked to be best practices. So the $500 deductible is benchmarked as a median deductible for government business by the Mercer Corporation that does an annual survey every year. So we follow that, we buy that data every year and share that with your team. The HSA is clearly the plan that's blooming, and you're going to hear a lot more no matter what comes out of the Affordable Care Act 2.0 version in Washington. HSA is here to stay and grow. And those 2 plans are better actually to engage members and employees in better understanding the true cost of health care. So the shift to those and a hard shift a couple years down the road is a necessity to continue down that strategy. The retirees, again, this is something over time that we've been watching and looking for risk areas and excessive risk areas. And when we did the math on the post-65 and retirees, even though your plan is secondary to Medicare for retirees, those individuals on a per capita basis had some of the highest costs per member versus your active members. So it sounded an alarm that said, is there an opportunity, is there a way to do this better where everybody still wins and comes out at least as good or better than where they're at? So fast developing in the marketplace specifically for that reason, although the program we recommended has been in the marketplace for 15 years. It was designed specifically for retirees, post-65 or Medicare eligible. So it's a trust, and it's got 70,000 members on it nationwide. It's growing. It's got about 1,400 employers. A good majority of those are public sector. That was a fully insured plan. The prices on that plan are projected to be lower than what you're spending to insure that population today. So ultimately, the town and the retiree members could have a win
in both of their columns. They're both, there's a cap, a savings element to both parties. And the reason being is because, again, as Ms. Reese talked about, it is purely shifting to a Medicare platform rather than a commercial platform. Right now, we're insuring our retirees, town and normal, on a commercial platform, and you're paying commercial pricing. A shift to this trust changes that. It has a slower growth rate because of that. The trend in Medicare is much slower than it is on a commercial plan. So all of this, sorry to go on and on, but it's kind of a multi-year strategy that is culminating now, coming into play with everyone's approval.
And I would just add, if I could, Mayor and Council, thank you so much for your attention. We live and breathe insurance items every day, so we get really excited about it, but we understand that it's not always necessarily the most exciting thing to hear about at length on a Monday evening. So with that being said, I would reference also the multiple points that were made during the presentation about the importance of education and support of employees going through these changes. You know, we were very, very careful about, you know, looking for plans that we thought would be very beneficial to employees, would be beneficial to retirees, with the knowledge that this is all going to require a lot of work on the back end. And we are very, very excited and hopeful that you will approve these measures. So thank you.
Just, Mayor, if I could, just a couple of quick comments. The bottom line is, as I'm looking at our past increases, over the past 10 years, our average rate of increase in our health fund's been 4.2%, which is pretty doggone good. I would say most employers would be very happy with that, but that's taken a lot of work. We've done a lot of plan adjustments, worked very carefully to control costs, but at the same time safeguard benefits for employees, because this is important. So we don't go into these things simply looking at the bottom line. We also have to consider the totality of the impact of these changes on employees. But even at keeping our costs down and making some changes, I don't think we've adversely affect coverage levels. In fact, in some cases, we've actually improved coverage. But I noticed the last 5 years, our rate of increase is 7.6%, so it's sliding upwards. A lot of that is our retiree base. We love our retirees. Many of us hope to be one someday, but they're an expensive group, and particularly expensive in the prescription drug arena. That, as Pam used the term, that is an unsustainable situation where we are primary for a large block of our retirees on prescription drugs. And that's kind of the reality of the way our plan was designed. It wasn't intentional, but that's kind of the way it's worked out. So we've got to continue to be vigilant to try to find new ways to save money, because even this year, a 9% increase is probably not unreasonable given what other plans are facing, but that's 9% on a very large base, and we can't, we're not in a position to continue to have those kinds of increases. So we have to look at every possible way we can to keep those costs controlled, but at the same time provide really good benefits for our employees and our retirees. And I think essentially we've accomplished that. It's not perfect. It's probably not ideal. Nobody wants to see that old $50 deductible plan go away, but let's face it, it's time. Those types of plans don't exist anymore. It's probably overdue, and it's not reasonable. We were talking about, you can't, a $50 probably won't even cover a doctor's visit. I can't imagine most doctor's visit would be under $50. So it's time for that plan to go away, but we're giving our employees a few years to kind of get used to that and begin to look at other options. Again, it's a rapidly changing environment, this healthcare and health insurance industry, and who knows what we'll face next year, but it takes this kind of annual vigilance to keep those costs where they've been, and we hope to continue to make sure our increases are as minimal as they can be, because we're just, budgets are such anymore that this is a big ticket item for organizations, And 9% increases are things that we just don't want to have to absorb in the future.
Mr. McCarthy, we'll start with you. You had a question?
Well, actually, you answered a couple of them in your post comments. Thank you. And thanks for all of this. Or at least the parts of it I understand. I guess working backwards, so if I understand the retiree portion, so the Medicare eligible is what we're talking about changing. The space between retirement and Medicare is staying intact.
Correct.
Correct.
Got the first part. And so if I were to understand your comments, so we're decreasing our risk population by essentially creating a gap policy option for our retirees. And currently that fee looks like it'll be less than what our proposed increase would have been if we were to continue our own plan.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm assuming with your history and reputation, you've vetted Benistar and they're a
Yes,
great
and
company and all those sorts of good things.
great question. Benistar is actually a trust, and it's reinsured by Hartford, the particular program that we're looking for you. Every year, though, we will still analyze that as we do your current program. There are other reinsurers that they work with as well, United American, other A or A+ rated. And we have clients in the Benistar program in multiple trusts, whichever best favors that entity. So your employees would always be getting a look at the market. It's still an employer-sponsored program, but it's on a fully insured basis, which provides a more stability to it, particularly because, as was mentioned, this group in particular is prone to the use of many prescriptions. And today, as we see specialty drugs, that market is untapped yet. It's only been around really for 5 years, and it is growing at an incredible rate and an incredible cost.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Two more questions. Back on just the plan option changes. If we could get that grid slide up. I guess I'm looking at the one that talked about, or maybe it's just here, this one.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, you don't have that one in your slides. So we're talking about eliminating Plan 1 and trying to incent them into Plan 3 with an HSA contribution. Do we plan to in the future and Plan 2 to continue to contribute to the Flex account? Or is that an incentive from,
That's a good question. When Plan 1 no longer exists,
what's the basis?
Plan 2 will have to become the basis, so we'll have to
Okay.
consider a formula and whether or not that makes sense. Fortunately, we've got 2 years to figure out what makes sense, but I'm sure it won't take us that long. I'm sure Michael will be on it very quickly. But we'll have to have some new formula and determine, is there a logic behind making a flex spending contribution moving forward? I don't know that there will be, but there may be, and that has
Okay.
to be determined.
Which kind of leads into my second question is, I'm assuming the HSA contribution is a one-time incentive to transfer over to the plan, and that ongoing HSA contributions are not part of what you're projecting.
Correct. That is our intention, is that this sort of sizable contribution would be one time. You
Okay.
get in, if you get in early, you get the reward of having this in your health savings account. Mike has shared with the Employee Insurance Committee and with staff, HR staff, while employees are feeling discomfort in many organizations about going to a high deductible health plan, it's because of the fear of the unknown of that first year, waiting till your health savings account grows and having some confidence in your account. And so if we can help cushion that, then I think that helps alleviate some of the concern and people's fear of just the concept of a high deductible plan.
Does then that trigger the gap between Plan 2 and Plan 3, an HSA contribution in your cost savings?
Down the road, when Plan 2 becomes the foundation, it's possible that could be, but I think
To
we have to
equate the-
determine that. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Then last question is, are we anticipating a decrease in wellness participation? And is that what's precipitating the change in the incentive, or is it a claims or an experience issue that we're
In
looking to
terms
change
of the,
it?
going from the 40
40,
and
80 to
80 to
60,
60, 20. No, I don't, we're not anticipating a reduction in wellness, but because it's been 40 and 80 since 2012, we want employees not to become complacent. And so I think the thought process was, well, if we bump it a little bit, the handful of folks that are intentionally choosing not to participate will be paying now the higher amount. But we're talking less than 5 people. And it also then does, I think, continue to have the current participation participate. If they're participating at risk of paying 40 or 80, they will for sure participate at risk of paying 60 and 120. That's our thought process anyway. They could prove us wrong, but I think that's what we'll see.
Thank you.
Mr. Fritzen?
You mentioned high deductible, but I don't see a number associated with high deductible. Is that because it's a different scale depending on who's covered, or?
No.
What are we talking about when we say high deductible?
For individual, Jenny, 2,800?
Sure, yeah, it's 2,800 for individual and 5,600 for family coverage.
The HSA, what are the restrictions on the use of that? And does that just accumulate over an employee's entire employment and
It does, and
beyond?
the advantage of the HSA over a flexible spending account is that on flexible spending accounts, it's use it or lose it. On an HSA, it does build into perpetuity. And essentially, an employee, if they were to leave, could take that with them down the road. They could use that into their retirement, and they can use it for a wealth of different things. Basically, anything that you can use a flexible spending account on, you can also use your HSA dollars on. So prescriptions, you can use it on premiums, you can use it on a number of different things.
Health-related
Yes,
matters?
absolutely.
Okay. Was there any consideration of having the employee start paying a percentage of their premium in any of your?
For individual employees, you mean
Yeah.
singles?
Right. I mean, that's in the private sector, not many private sector companies are paying 100% of the employee coverage anymore, you know, so was that ever anything you modeled or talked about?
Not really, not in great detail at this point. While we have only 2 collective bargaining agreements, both of those bargaining agreements indicate what the town's contribution will be. But in terms of the plan, it's basically, their collective bargaining agreements both say they're in the town plan with classified employees, so whatever the town leadership decides the plan will be, they're in it. The only thing that's defined in the agreements is how much the town will contribute. So while down the road, it's possible that we could change that contribution or that share, it would
Have to be
it would be
negotiated
through the
with-
negotiation process. And frankly, I think both of our collective bargaining units know that we're very unique. I mean, they understand that. They are at the table when we have employee insurance committee meetings, and they've been very helpful in lots of these conversations. Even with every change that we propose, they've vetted our proposed changes. So I appreciate the fact that they've been at the table with us to discuss the future of the plan and things that we need to do now to make the plan better down the road. I called Mike the other day, though, specifically about that question to ask him, kind of trends. And Mike shared with me that while the town pays 100% for single coverage, that is a little bit out of the norm because most public employers, there is an employee contribution. On the flip side, for dependent coverage, the town pays less than many other public sector employees. So what we might be paying more for single, we're paying less. Now, I have no idea how that's offset, but at least that's a little bit of a difference in our favor.
Thank you.
Mr. McBride?
Just a comment, and, quality people provide quality public service, and at the end of the day, that's why we're all here. So just a pat on the back to our HR staff, and it sounds like with the input of other employees, for working so hard to strike the balance between taking care of our people and also being financially responsible. Because the fact is, good, reliable, affordable health insurance, as well as other benefits, are more important than they've ever been, and that may increase depending on what happens in coming months. So I just think it's really important, and thank you for taking it so seriously.
I think we're ready for part two.
Okay, then I'll do the wellness presentation, and then you can take each action item separately. I'm going to start the wellness conversation just by making a couple of points. I see in front of Mike are two binders, and every time we meet with Mike and his team, they come in with a binder of information. And it's pretty regular that they make the trip down to visit us and tell us how things are going. Every single meeting we have with the Horton team, there's a section in each of those binders about, here's some things on the horizon. Here's what you need to start thinking about. Here's maybe some things that other organizations are trying that maybe should be on your radar. And I just wanted to point out how much we appreciate the Horton Group kind of leading us and guiding us in that respect, in terms of always planting the seed about, hey, you might not be ready for this now, but down the road, beware this is coming, or consider this to help your plan. So he does plant a lot of seeds, so thank you for that, which kind of links directly to our wellness program. I came across a proposal that I put together in July 2002, and I presented it to the city manager and our broker at the time, Bill Raines of Gallagher Byerly, and it was called the Healthy Balance Program, a Long-Term Wellness Proposal, and it's dated July 2002. We have as an organization valued a wellness initiative for a very long time. And back in 2003, when we got started with the Caterpillar Healthy Balance Program, we were really trendsetters. There were no public employers doing anything like this, even very few in the private sector. And so we have had a wellness initiative for a long time. In 2003, we got started, and in 2006, then, we piloted a program with Bromen. Bromen has been an active participant in our wellness programs since 2006. We've had a number of agreements with Bromen, and they've provided workplace wellness here on site. Last year, Bromen came to me and to the HR staff and indicated that they were going to be transitioning their workplace wellness initiative from Bromen to their Center for Integrated Wellness. And they call it the Integrated Wellness Partners, IWP. And and it's out of the facility, was their new facility located off of Route 9 and East Bloomington. So they brought that to our attention, their plans, back in 2016. So last year, we started having conversations with them specifically about our wellness program. Where have we been in the last 11 years, and where are we going? And it's been a long-term partnership, and I don't regret any decisions we've made and where we've gone with Bromen. But during the transition, it's presented some opportunities. Earlier this year, a couple months ago, the Integrated Wellness Partners, we assigned our existing contract with Advocate over to them. So they have adopted our existing contract with Advocate, and they have moved forward just under the same scope of services as our Bromen agreement. But during the transition, they did present us with a proposal to do a little more. And when they presented us with that proposal, then, of course, because we have a strong relationship with Horton, and Horton has a wellness team, we had a discussion with them about our wellness program. You know, where should we be? How are we doing? and just an overall evaluation of our initiatives. So while evaluating the Integrated Wellness Partners proposal, Horton gave us a proposal from, or presented to us, another potential vendor for wellness services called Interactive Health. The HR staff did have an opportunity to sit through a demonstration of the Integrative Wellness Partners, the advocate team, their tools. And then we also then had an opportunity to sit through a demonstration of Interactive Health's tools and just their scope of services. And we've been looking at both potential vendors, keeping in mind that our existing wellness agreement with Advocate has moved over to Integrated Wellness Partners, and we're still functioning as we have. So again, during this transition though, staff has talked to our employee insurance committee. We've talked to other employees that participate in wellness to basically evaluate how are we doing. You know, what are we getting? What are you getting from the program? What should we be doing? What do we want to do? And how do we want our wellness program to be? So that's sort of been our guiding principle lately. Is that we've been working at wellness since 2003. And again, 11 years with Advocate. When we looked at the proposals, we as a staff felt confident in seeking council authorization to move forward from this point with Interactive Health. Interactive Health does bring to the table some things that Advocate doesn't. Interactive Health is much larger in terms of their scope, their breadth of wellness services. In my report, I indicated some of their representations are that they have over 3,000 clients. They're endorsed by the American Hospital Association, nationwide, PATH, et cetera. But one of the most significant things when we're comparing apples to apples, if we can, the difference between Interactive Health and Advocate's proposal was that Interactive Health performs biometric screenings, which we've been getting once a year, but Interactive sets it up. They use LabCorp, which is a national laboratory service, and we can get 2 screenings a year. One thing we found very significant with that is employees then have an opportunity to see how they're doing. If they're implementing some wellness initiatives and trying some new programs and such, that 6-month screening opportunity really can give them some support, helps them see if what they're doing is making a difference. In addition to that, as part of their base fee, as in the blood draw, we get some specialized services. Automatically, we get a PSA, a thyroid, and an A1C test done. Those are a little bit more specialized screenings that we have not gotten under the Advocate proposal, and then we don't get those in our annual screenings. They probably would be available for a fee, but this is part of baseline services through Interactive Health using LabCorp. We found that particular item to be very substantial in terms of a difference in screenings. The other thing, as I mentioned, is we demoed both vendors' tools in terms of their portal, their technological interface and such. Advocates was nice. Interactive Health was nice. We liked both. We did believe that Interactive Health was a little bit more user-friendly. But the bottom line difference, I think, that we were really impressed with was the screening opportunities. And then, of course, one thing that we've talked with Advocate about in terms of a key feature for us moving forward is that we really are looking for more analytics and more reporting, and we believe that Interactive Health already has that in place. So basically, our relationship with a wellness vendor will continue to not just be status quo or not just to keep our wellness program moving forward, because frankly, 2002, 2003, we were trendsetters. And I think that we have an opportunity to really do more with our wellness initiative. And so we're excited, frankly, we're just excited, period, to have the opportunity to work with any vendor. It is unusual, and we do appreciate council's support to have this opportunity to work with Advocate, Interactive Health, or whomever comes to the table, because I think that it's very valuable for our employees. But moving forward, I think with the new set of eyes and just a change of relationship might give our program a little bit a new fresh start. So the last item on the agenda is requesting authorization to move forward with an agreement with Interactive Health. And Jenny and Mike, did you have any comments or anything that I missed that you want to add?
No, I just, again, want to echo, you said you were early adopters of programs in wellness, 2003. That is one of the earliest that we know, particularly in public sector. So kudos to you and your staff and to the whole town to participate in things like that at that early stage. So, thanks.
Let me just add, is a little over $100,000 for this program. We also provide some staff support internally through the HR department. Given the fact that our health insurance program's well over $6 million, $6.5 million or so, $100,000 investment in wellness is appropriate. I think in addition to cost control in our plan, the other way to impact our health insurance expenses is try to have a healthier workforce and people that are more cognizant. I can give you countless anecdotal stories about how our wellness program has had an impact. What I don't have, and what we're hoping to get in this program, is more metrics, very specific metrics that we can show how we are making a difference in the health and productivity of our workforce. And again, part of it is health insurance, but part of it is just productivity and employee health and well-being. And with this new vendor, I think we're hoping to get a lot more of that analytical detail, so we can demonstrate what's working and also maybe what's not working, and where we need to make modifications to become more effective. But I think it's money very well spent.
Pam, in the narrative in the council report, there was discussion that somebody from Broman was on site 30 hours a week. Will we have the same on site?
We would not.
Okay.
Jenny, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, certainly. So with our agreement with Horton, some of our contractual services include some wellness services. And Horton has very graciously, always been on site when we need them. Additionally, as Mark had mentioned, we do have some on-site staff resources on our HR team. We've got a safety and wellness coordinator who has done a very, very good job shepherding that program, and I have confidence that she'll continue to do so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fritzen?
That was kind of part of one of my questions is how does it look different? And it would seem to me then that the value of that dedicated specialist isn't as great as it sounds. I mean, that it's more of a as-needed basis when somebody needs or wants some consultation or whatever. And so is that fair to say?
I would say that's potentially a safe assessment. Certainly, they've brought things to the table and been very good. The current person goes and does some blood pressure checks and things like that. We do believe that some of the effort that we're getting through the dedicated wellness specialist, we can incorporate through other means.
It would seem to me if we've got almost 100% participation, and that's probably on a fairly ongoing basis, that our employee group is well-versed enough in how this works that if they need certain assistance, they're pretty savvy about knowing when to ask for something or seek something, I would think. Is that?
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
And if I can, I would say that's an accurate assessment, absolutely. You know, the 99% number sort of attests to the fact that we've got the health risk appraisal down to a bit of a science. I don't want to jinx our numbers for this year. But in terms of the replacement for things like on-site coaching and some of those other things that have come up, there is an interactive health solution for some of those items too. So instead of an on-site coach who we've had, you know, the same individual, it would be a call-in system. Arguably, there are some added benefits even there to being able to talk to a coach that perhaps doesn't know you for some sensitive health items.
You know, the feel is I've got a local group with an on-site person, and now I have a satellite group without an on-site person, so it doesn't feel as, you know, just on the face of it. But there's an employee health group that's been involved in this discussion, right? And so they're part of this recommendation.
True,
And
we
so
did.
they don't have that sense that I would have just reading this and not being a participant. That's what
Right.
I'm getting at.
Right. And I apologize for that kind of disconnect there, but we do have an employee wellness committee that isn't quite as active as the employee insurance committee. The employee insurance committee is a group of folks that have that really understand our whole benefit process and are very vested in not just the insurance side, but the wellness side and how that plays and ties to our claims. They have more than once discussed this at a meeting in terms of the possibility of changing vendors. And I think that it's hard to, I can't really specifically say what the wellness person is doing when she's here, because that's not, you know, in my area of direct supervision. But I do know certainly she brings some things to the table, and she brings that personal touch, of course. But as part of Broman's proposal, it obviously expanded on into more of the metrics and such and their portal. And we just felt like, along with the Employee Insurance Committee, like trying another vendor for a while will bring some new life into the program, and I think that we'll see some outcome.
Mr. Fritzen, let me just add, I think when we first launched this program, I think the on-site person was much more critically important to sell it to employees. And you alluded to that in your question. I think it's now become part of the culture. For example, when we first began offering the annual health risk appraisal, and there was a fair amount of grumbling about that. You know, I got to come in. Every employee, every spouse, retiree has to come in. The city is a hassle. You have to schedule it. You come in, you go through all this battery of tests. Many did it at that time because of the incentive. It was just like, well, I get a significant break on my, so I'm going to do it. I don't hear that anymore. People actually, I think, look forward to it. They realize what value is there, and it just, we don't have to sell like we used to, and it's not perfect. There are some employees that probably go through it because they simply do what they have to do at a minimum to qualify for the incentive. There are a lot of employees that do embrace it, however, and really appreciate what the program offers from top to bottom. And I mean, I can cite you real examples where people were walking around with serious health issues and they didn't know it, and they made no effort to find out. But through the health risk appraisal, they were, I mean, sometimes they went directly from health risk appraisal to the hospital. You know, they were told, you need to get to the hospital immediately. And I saw it firsthand. The person had their blood pressure checked right in front of me. The person was like, have you ever had your blood pressure checked before? No, I don't usually check it. And they said, is your spouse here? And they literally took this person right to the hospital and got him the treatment he needed. So I mean, it does, it's not only helps protect our plan, I think can save lives. But back to the on-site person, there's value there. There's no question there's value of having somebody on-site. That's why, but since then, we've created this health, what's her position called?
Safety and Wellness Coordinator.
Safety and Wellness Coordinator.
Sure.
And because we bought in as well, this is important enough to have a full-time person dealing with these kinds of issues, and that's what she does. And I think because of that, there's less of a need for the other on-site person. And again, I think we do have kind of a cultural change that people accept it and support it without having to be constantly reminded how important it is.
One last question, the 514 members that's used as the basis for, where's that number come from? Is that every employee plus those spouses that?
Yes, those
That
are
have
employees
coverage.
plus spouses that are covered by our health plan.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the 5 employees who choose not to get a screening are being paid for in this program, right? I mean, those you referred to that
Yes.
that are
Yes.
paying the penalty or getting the incentive or however you want to couch it, we're paying $200, and under this program, we would pay $200 a year for those 5 employees, so that's $1,000 going out for 5 people who have not chosen to use the program up till now?
Well,
Yes.
to give a little bit more background on what is included in that number per person, those 5 individuals that choose not to do the health risk appraisal and the blood draw, they would still have access to all of the healthy activities features and all of the portal. So while they wouldn't be realizing the full value of that per person fee, they would be getting some.
So they're getting
very
some
nice
benefit,
income.
they're just not getting the screen?
Precisely.
Correct.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Ms. Lorenz?
Question, couple questions, actually. Was there a similar accreditation for the advocate program, or is the interactive the only one with the accreditation?
If they're accredited, it was not identified in their proposal.
Okay. Second question is, how long is the agreement with interactive? Is it going to be a 1 year or?
That's a very good question, and I forgot to inquire on that. So my guess is 1 year's pretty short, but I think we would definitely commit to 1 year because that's all of our budget is, and then
Right.
say we'd reevaluate in 1 year and then come back to council.
Okay. And then finally, and we've kind of been dancing around this a little bit here with, in terms of people, who's going to be involved. You will maintain the safety and wellness coordinator, but am I correct in saying that you will not need the $65,250 wellness specialist? Is that correct? I'm looking at page
Well,
8-3.
The safety and wellness coordinator is a town employee.
Okay.
So the 8-3 identifies, that's the Broman, the advocate proposal. So that individual, that 65,000 toward that, that portion of their program and activities area we would not have anymore. So the full 101,000 that Broman's proposing is basically going forward like we are today, versus the 102,000 for interactive health.
So if you look at Broman, you got $46,000, $260 in annual fees. Then there's an additional activities tracking apps of $55,512. And then in addition to that, is it these other expenses down here, the $65,250 and the $62,000? Guess what I'm trying to get is, do those go away?
The 65,250 and the 62,000 are our budget. So that's what we would use to either pay the 101,000 for Broman or 102,000 for interactive health.
Okay. So those don't go, that's not
So
a,
we've budgeted more than, our budget is 127,000
gotcha.
or so.
Okay.
And, yeah, 127,220 is our budget.
Okay,
Both proposals are under budget.
I see.
I
Excellent.
apologize for the confusion.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I got.
Mr. McCarthy?
Just a follow-up. following up on Ms. Loren's question. So the 101,772 included the person that Mr. Fritzen was asking about, I'm sorry, I forget what we called that person, wellness specialist? was it?
Correct.
And that the 102.8 is for the services, and then our internal staff person, I forgot that title, I apologize, health and safety
Well,
is on
among
top
all
of the
staff
102.
And all employees. I think we're putting a little too much emphasis on the role of that wellness specialist. The wellness specialist, while on site, coordinates the program. So the programs still happen. It's just whether or not they're going to be coordinated remotely through Horton Interactive Health and HR staff, or coordinated through this person from Advocate. But their duties are still getting done. So the wellness specialist is the person that's coordinating the programming, and will have same programming, if not more programming, under Interactive Health.
That makes sense.
That makes sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I
Okay.
guess I was just curious so the I apologize, health and safety coordinator, is that the internal staff person's title? That's in addition to the 102.8.
Right, so current staff person already on
Already on
board.
staff, it's not a
Yeah,
new
yeah.
position.
Correct.
Thank you.
It's already in the Human Resources Department. I'm
I-
sorry.
If I could add to that, the Horton group has always been involved in wellness, not always, for the past 10 years, almost 12 now. So you beat us on that, and we still look at ourselves as being pretty innovative in that area. We haven't had a lot of opportunity to engage with the town of Normal as we normally would, because you had your own dedicated person, and sometimes that model wasn't conducive for us to be involved the way we would normally. So we expect our role to also advance in this process, interact with the Interactive Health, your data, your staff people, to really kind of make more meaningful use of the data that is collected, along with our analytics folks on where we spent our money already, trying to put some future roadmap together of where we're going. So we might not be here every day, but we will try to make best use of the data that's available to put together a good strategic plan that will have impact.
Mr. Preston?
Thanks, Mayor. Another kind of follow-up in the same line of questioning. Though it may not be reflected in the numbers, would the move to Interactive Health have require significantly more internal staff time than what we're currently experiencing with Advocate?
I don't believe so. Jenny might have a stronger opinion, but with the use of technology and applications and wellness portals, I mean, both vendors, Advocate and Interactive Health, are promoting their wellness portal. That's all through digital technology. That's how they would be interacting with our employees and with human resources. So I don't see any huge change in terms of town staff time dedicated to that. I think it just forces us to be more efficient and just collaborative with our partners.
I would agree with that. Some of the things that we've seen from Interactive Health in terms of their data and analytics, and the back end of that portal that we have access to as staff, it looks like a very robust and very intuitive system. I think that will be very, very useful. I don't anticipate any major increases in staff time.
I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but I think it's worth knowing that Interactive Health is one of about a dozen companies that Horton works with. And there was actually a vetting process to come up with that vendor to see who would be a best fit for your needs based on a request of information. So we narrowed that field down in presenting that. It's one of our longest relationships that we've had with a screening company. But again, we represent a good dozen of them that work with many of our clients. So this was a best fit scenario.
All right. Further? The item we're voting on is a resolution authorizing plan design and administrative changes to the employee and health insurance. And we'll take the wellness in a separate vote. Please call the roll.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item 8 is a resolution accepting a proposal and authorizing staff to execute an agreement with Interactive Health for employee wellness services.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
I recuse myself from voting on this topic. I recuse myself from voting on this topic, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. That concludes our general orders tonight. We do have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss personnel matters under Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act. Before taking that motion, do we have comments or concerns? Mr. Peterson?
Just a quick comment. I want to acknowledge our Public Works Department, our Public Works Director. I think I reported to the council last week. We had one of our neighboring communities in central Illinois, Lincoln, experienced some heavy storm damage, and I received a call from their city administrator saying anything you guys can do to help us, we'd appreciate it. So I contacted Wayne, and he dispatched, I think, 4 vehicles, dump trucks, and 2 knuckle boom trucks, and operators were either 2 or 3 days? 3 days to Lincoln, and I got a phone call from their city administrator, just extremely grateful for that assistance. They love our knuckle boom trucks, by the way. They were just perfect for for that application, because they had lots of brush debris, and so we're happy to help them out, and I'm sure if the roles are reversed, they will be more than happy to send people up here.
You obviously weren't one of those operators.
I didn't, I passed. I had a couple of meetings. I was set to go, but Wayne suggested maybe there was
Would have been
better people.
Would have been too many scalped lawns. Motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters of personnel under Section 2C1 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McBride?
Aye.
Mrs. Cummings?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, we are adjourned to executive session.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.